everybody, it's Anita Krishna. Thank you for watching this podcast. Look, I've had this background for a little while, but I've never used it because I don't think I have enough light. And I think I have some sufficient lighting now, but green screen lighting is very difficult. That's why it's just easier to shoot it like from your living room and stuff like that. But I just thought I'd give this a whirl because I'm in the mood. Every day I wake up, we all wake up, we look at the news feed. We sometimes look at the other news and just to compare the two. And boy, oh boy, like we are definitely caught into two different worlds. And I feel like there's just not enough time in the day to talk about everything. Every day we could talk for hours and hours, but just I find I don't have the time. But obviously now we've been living with a carbon tax now for over 2 weeks, and you can really feel the effects of it. You fill up your tank. People, we don't even want to fill up our tanks, right? Like $50 gives you half a tank in such a small car. And oh, it's just so disgusting. And in BC, we don't even get rebates, as far as I know. I'll have to fact check myself on that. But as far as I'm aware, we don't get carbon tax rebates. So it's just gouging us, and it gouges everything because it all has knock-on effects. Because how do you think your products get to the store? They get there by a semi truck, which uses fuel. Farmers need fuel. We all need fuel. This whole carbon neutral nonsense drives me up the wall. Nothing is meant to be carbon neutral. Nothing is meant to be net zero. And when do the Liberals plan on having everything okay so they can lift all these taxes? 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? We're supposed to live like this? I cannot wait till 2025. These people need to go. I don't care who replaces them. If you like Polyev or you don't like Polyev, I don't care anymore. We don't need this government and their stupid pretend budget like we care about you. So yesterday they have the Chrystia Freeland did this big speech on the federal budget for 2024. I don't know why every time I look at her, I don't really like this woman. I don't respect any woman that would freeze your bank account. So I have zero respect for her and for her policies and for driving Canada into the ground. We all know that. The world knows that. Gosh, just yesterday, I think it was Chris Guy said he's leaving. He's going to bounce. Like that's it. I mean, that guy can tolerate a lot and he's going to go. Whether you like him or don't like him, he's had enough of this country, right? And also there's another podcaster who's so nice. He's such a great guy and he does such a good job. His name's Clyde Do Something. He's even mulling over the idea of not staying in Canada because he posted that his landlords have asked them to leave, right? And he's got a family. It's hard to find a new place to live. It's and I hear stories like this all the time. So I mean, you have two big freedom fighters ready to bounce, ready to leave Canada. And it's just why do we have to, why we got to be like this, right? Okay, so in the budget yesterday, $40 billion deficit in the national debt. So that's what we're going to end up with. They keep saying this is going to tax the rich. I don't think so. That's just what they say. It's really, come on, it's taxing everybody. One way they're going to raise more money and generate more money is the increase on capital gains tax. But I think they're only doing that if you have a second or third home. And a lot of us are not in that position, right? So you will pay tax on your second or third home for capital gains. But I think it's each $250K. It's something like that. I mean, like if you have a second home and you bought it in the 90s and you bought it for 500,000 and then today you sell it for 2 million, you'll have to pay however they calculate the numbers, some capital gains tax. So that's one way of getting more money, but they've already squandered so much money. As I'll show you in this article from the Epoch Times, we knew in 2020 over at Global News, at least I knew this, that Justin Trudeau had bought enough vaccinations to vaccinate every man, woman, and child in Canada 8 times over. And we never reported it. It would drive me nuts that we never reported it. 6 billion on COVID vaccines, and they destroyed 74 million doses worth 2.1 billion. So they have 2.1 billion to flush down the toilet and put in the garbage because everybody knows these are not. Oh, am I allowed to say that? Okay, they are safe and effective. The Health Canada says that they are. Oh, one more thing about Health Canada. Somebody messaged me something else about the so-called famous horse dewormer. Let me tell you what they said. This is on the Canada.ca. It's so sad to see this because this is what you would Google for a source that you can trust. You cannot. You cannot. I have seen so much incorrect information on Canada.ca that it's made my head spin. But now they're saying IVM, we all know what that is. It's the famous horse one, not authorized to prevent or treat COVID-19 and may cause serious health problems. And they're saying consult your doctor. Geez, what do you think your doctor is going to say? What do you think your doctor has been told to say? Your doctor is told what to say. Otherwise, goodbye, doctor. You will lose your license. And the brave ones that speak up have been trying to scream from the hilltops and tell you that. But I found that a really disgusting thing to put on Health Canada because it's inaccurate. Thank you, Health Canada. Do you care about our health? I don't think so. Okay, so let's go back and let's just have a little listen to what Miss Freeland had to say. She always talks like someone who's in high school giving a high school presentation. She always just strikes me as that. But here we go.
In Canada and around the world, the 21st century winner-takes-all economy is making those at the very top richer, while too many middle-class Canadians are struggling just to avoid falling behind.
You know that and you don't care.
The job of our tax system is to lean against this structural inequality, to fund investments in the middle class, especially in young Canadians, by asking those who are benefiting from the winner-takes-all economy to pay a little bit more. Today, our tax system doesn't do that. Today, it is possible for a nurse or a carpenter to pay tax at a higher marginal rate than a multimillionaire. That's not fair. That must change, and it will.
What do you care about what's fair? Oh, she's nodding her head like, oh, I did good.
Our government is raising the inclusion rate to 2/3 on annual capital gains above $250,000 for individuals.
Okay, I find this woman back here, Anita Anand, I think she's a woman. She was yawning throughout this. She looks so bored throughout this. If you're bored, how do you expect me to be interested, for goodness sake? And over here, Trudeau, there are parts where he was thumbing through a magazine. I mean, he was listening, but I guess she's a minister of finance. She's going to deliver the speech, but he just sat there and nodded. It was an easy day for him, and she looked like she was going to fall asleep. This guy's the one that wants you to be carbon neutral. This is Guilbeault. He seems to base none of these policies in science. So this is our current government. I wouldn't let any of these people babysit my cat, for God's sake. But anyway, that's a little bit about the budget. I don't think these people, they obviously do not care about Canadians and what you feel and what you believe. They can go on and pretend like they care about you, but they certainly haven't shown. And what we've seen during COVID, you've just decimated the middle class. The middle class went from the middle class to the working poor. You know, Chrystia Freeland is having some people deliver leather shoes to her house, and there are people that can just barely buy the basics of food, and they can't even have a luxury like ice cream. That's really what's going on. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I saw on the weekend, World War III was trending, World War III. And even like regular people, like my regular, very like sort of non-political friends that I have on Facebook were even saying, is this the start of World War III? And one person said as a comment, what's happening? It was kind of funny. But, none of us are experts on the Middle East, right? We've been so poorly informed about what's going on there over the years. We're really not taught much about the Middle East in terms in history class or anything like that. It's just sort of a subject we know nothing about. Like we grow up our whole lives and we hear, we'll never have peace in the Middle East, or when will there ever be peace in the Middle East? We hear that a lot and we don't know much about it. And the other phrase that we always hear is you can't avoid death and taxes, so you just think that's a thing that we have to pay. And good God, am I ever sick of taxes? But I digress. But going back to the Middle East, we often don't know what the conflicts were about. If we're really going to be honest with ourselves, like we always hear about the Gaza Strip, the Israeli Palestinian conflict. We don't, some of us don't know the definition of Zionism as compared to being Jewish. A lot of these things we're sort of just learning now. And I do not think that I am no expert. I'm learning just along with everybody else, but I have an interest. My interest is peaked since October 7th. And a lot of great podcasters are doing amazing things, bringing us information that we should have learned a long time ago. So basically, Iran dropped these sort of bomblets onto Israel. Israel has what is called an Iron Dome. So what is the Iron Dome, you ask? The Iron Dome is an Israeli mobile all-weather air defense system developed by Rafael Advanced Defense Systems. This is what Wikipedia is saying. So basically what they did, Iran did this because Israel had attacked the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, and they killed some top officials there. So they did that on April 1st. People like to do crazy things on April 1st, but so Iran is like, no, you can't do this. This is not going to happen. And there's a guy called Scott Ritter. He's a former Iraqi weapons inspector and foreign policy analyst. He knows a lot about this, and I've been watching what he's had to say about it, and his level of information is absolutely incredible. The Israelis had done that. They had attacked the Iranian embassy. So basically, Iran hit military targets at the Nevatim Air Base. And this is where those F-35 fighters are housed that did the attack on Damascus. So it was a strategic attack. They hit exactly where they wanted to. The type of artillery they used was very sophisticated. And basically, they showed you can't do this. But all in other media reports, we hear that, the Iron Dome protected everything. And that may not quite be the truth, right? But let's have a listen to a little bit of Scott Ritter. This is him on George Galloway's show. And so let's just have a little listen to what he had to say.
This was just a single strike package. Iran has several strike packages just like this held in reserve that they have for Dimona, that they have for the Kiryat in Tel Aviv, that they have for other air bases. Iran can repeat this process all day long. And what they showed Israel is, this is what we can do. And I can guarantee you there's people like me right now who wear uniform or intelligence officers doing the exact same analysis doing, and they're writing big critical reports up the chain of command saying, stop all nonsense. We can't win this war. It's over, guys. Stop it. We have no defense here. If Iran wants to come in, we are powerless. This thing will escalate out of control. Make it stop now, which is why Joe Biden was on the phone with the G7 to intervene with Israel, why Joe Biden was on the phone with Netanyahu, and why Netanyahu's generals were telling him, stand down. We can't win this fight. This is a huge Iranian victory.
Wow. The media doesn't portray it that way at all. How are we supposed to wade through this information? But I would certainly trust a guy like him and all his experience and his knowledge. If you want any questions answered, I would look him up, Scott Ritter, and start watching videos. If you want information for yourself, start reading his Substack. Let's have a look at one more interview that he did with Jimmy Dore, my favy, Jimmy Dore. Let's have a look at what he said there on that show. It was super interesting.
Well, Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians, but I will tell you that, and this I get in trouble sometimes saying this, but I'm very cynical, but this was part of the plan of Hamas all along. Everybody knew what Israel was going to do. Anybody who pretended that Israel wasn't going to come in and slaughter the Palestinian people if they haven't been studying what Israel's done in Gaza over the years. Hamas went in, defeated Israel, embarrassed Israel, then lured them into Gaza knowing that Israel would do exactly what they do because they understood that there could never be a Palestinian state unless international public opinion turned on Israel. And the best way to get international public opinion to turn on Israel is to let Israel be Israel, to let Israel do what it's naturally inclined to do, which is slaughter civilians. So they did that. They committed this.
But one thing also is that Israel funds Hamas. The Americans send money to Israel also, but there's other countries in this sort of spider web also that I don't claim to understand at all. But Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, they're headstrong and we support Israel. We support Israel. If you ever stop and say, you know what, I don't think Palestinian children should be killed. I don't think this is the way you wage war, and that you send bombs to places where people get aid, where you bomb hospitals, where you starve the Palestinians, just because we stand up for Palestinians to say that that's absolute nonsense. We don't want to see innocent women and children and men starved to death and bombed out. That doesn't mean that we want to see the same thing for Israelis. We don't want them to suffer either. And it doesn't make us anti-Semitic for saying so. And that's another thing we get so sick of. Like, nobody's an anti-Semite, like, for saying that. We want peace, for God's sake. You want peace. And isn't what war is supposed to be about is when you wage war, you put the children and the women in bunkers, or you go to protect them, or you have strategic places where you do the fighting. Well, they're fighting where the civilians are, for God's sake. They're doing such atrocious things to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and whatever. I can't even watch it because you'll never be able to unsee it. Never mind living it. It's a genocide. I mean, it has to be stopped. And it's in this whole, the West supporting Ukraine to the end. Really? Is Ukraine part of the West, for God's sake? And supporting Israel to the end. What is the motivation behind it? We all know Ukraine is like a satellite state, a money laundering hubbub or whatever. And the same for Israel. You back it no matter what. You double, the West just doubles down no matter what.
It's horrific genocide. And then Hamas didn't yield. Hamas didn't bend. Hamas will accept no temporary ceasefire. Hamas won't return the hostages. Israel kills more civilians. Public opinion turns. Hamas still exists. They still fight. They won't surrender. And the end result is that Israel lost.
So let's take a look at what the news is saying, even though I'm loath to do so, but I wanted to have a look at what my old employer, Global News, how they would report this.
Saturday into Sunday morning, Israel withstood an aggressive and historic attack from Iran of more than 300 drone and missiles. 99% were intercepted by Israel, with British, American, French, and Jordanian forces assisting in the deflection operation.
In many ways, Iran has suffered a double defeat, the almost complete failure of their attack. And also, by making this attack, they've revealed to the world their true nature as the malign influence in the region.
That is shaping your opinion. So is that statement accurate from the former Prime Minister of England, David Cameron?
Canada, France, Germany, even officials in India and Kenya are chiming in with diplomatic notes of de-escalation.
Israel did not have to and does not have to defend itself alone when it is the victim of an aggression.
The U.S. is going to help no matter what.
In the 36 hours since, we have been coordinating a diplomatic response to seek to prevent escalation.
The U.S. has stated it won't participate in an Israeli counteroffensive on Iran. On the streets of Tehran, a festival-like atmosphere. It comes on the heels of Iran's UN ambassador calling the strikes a proportional response to a deadly strike on one of its embassy buildings in Syria. Israel is suspected of having carried it out.
It was precise.
She just said Israel is suspected of having carried out that attack in Damascus. My God, that is not accurate. Global National, you have so many producers and reporters vetting this stuff. That is not accurate. Even Wikipedia says that Israel did attack that embassy in Damascus. That is apparently well known, but not known to Global News. That's what makes me so mad. What point is there for you to be fraudulent? What is the point? What is the agenda? Why would you be saying this? Everything is so, Israel's the champion. Israel's the champion. Well, are they?
We don't know Iran's intended targets. As for claims that it gave warnings of the strikes, the U.S. called that categorically false. The Nevatim Air Base, which saw minor damages from the Iranian attacks, was visited Monday by Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi. He only repeated statements that Israel will respond to the weekend assaults.
By the way, Scott Ritter says that there's no way Israeli doesn't know. They have the most sophisticated defense force. They know absolutely everything. Like, there's no way that they didn't know. This is what Scott Ritter says in one of those podcasts.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions.
What
We
about
will
your
choose
actions?
our response accordingly.
The Israeli prime minister on social media urged unity international community, saying Iran is conducting a full-scale campaign of aggression, both directly and through its
So basically, anybody watching that is like, oh, Iran is conducting a full-scale show of aggression. Well, I don't agree with what you're telling me, and I don't believe you. I just don't believe you anymore. I'll talk about full-scale aggression. If you listen to either of those Scott Ritter interviews, he will tell you what some of the Israeli army is doing. Like, there's some stories he told about a 6-year-old girl that I had to fast forward it. It was that bad. So who's the aggressive one, you know? Anyway, how do we end this? I don't know. So but what is the goal? The ultimate goal, should it not be that the ultimate goal in the Middle East would be peace? That's what we want, is a peaceful world. So is it determined by, is it the right for Israel to have a Jewish state? Is it the right for the Palestinians to have their own state? I mean, two things can be true at the same time. And it's in all these years, nobody can figure this out. And there's all this pain and bloodshed and suffering. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this podcast today. I thank you. My Rumble channel, here it is. My Rumble channel is AK Straight Speaks. It's if I could change the name, I would. I know I always say this. You can find me also on Twitter, Facebook, other places, everywhere. Not everywhere. I'm here and there. Okay, but thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.